Yeah, and Michael, do you want to help with 151?
Oh, I gave everyone, I went to one of your discussions this past week and I helped them, I gave my master.
Oh, what's the discussion?
I went to the Wednesday one.
All right, both things are streaming. Hello, Annie, what is up?
Okay, I heard that. It took me a while.
How has your day been going? We usually have a camera for these things, but apparently the camera's not working.
No, I'm serious. I wasn't.
Yeah, that was. I plugged it in twice and it didn't work. Won't be able to see us, but hopefully you'll be able to see.
Who's going to? Oh my god. Whenever.
I should probably turn it down.
Like, I understand that it's about after.
Yeah.
Ryan, you gotta hurry and start the workshop so I can
like-
give Alex's chair.
Tuition and that whole.
No, it's basically like, compared to two.
What do you get out of
it?
I get to stand.
You can go log in.
But you can't have a login onto it.
Yeah, I got it.
Alright.
Gets a chair, a nice, comfortable chair.
And you have the edge case.
Make sure I am sharing sound as well, so you guys can hear whatever.
Michael.
We're gonna be waiting for a couple people to come in before we properly start.
I heard that your problems that's now.
Well, they're optional, right? But like.
Probably wait about 2 or 3 more minutes.
So, I don't understand what we talked about. That's too bad. You should.
Hoping to get
He's like,
things are going.
he's like, if you're paying for college and you don't, if you understand election.
Something that
You understand
like-
so long as it. Sorted out ASAP, like.
I'm like,
You really get.
That's why
I'm like.
Like.
Came with like 8 points.
Wow.
But if the game fell, it's not very good. What is
So we're dividing.
You're shooting that many people.
Oh, so, you know what, we're using new.
By the way, if you wanna like unmute yourself and like talk,
That takes all one.
ask us questions, then you totally can.
Exactly, so there's nobody to care about the celebrities if there's nobody left to care.
You want.
No, I'm not.
No,
Honestly,
like,
I have no idea what they're.
we're not.
You want to share.
They want to know how they could do it.
I told her I'm gonna do it. And what's in the data plan? Let's do this. The honor would never give you guys from. Never let you down.
I gotta
You guys
get.
No.
Or run around the circuit.
Oh, well, someone might have like.
We did have. I didn't know, look at this thing in my ass. Ask quickly.
Yeah, well, one of them is not the astronaut, the other one's.
No.
Alright. Alright, can you hear me? Can you hear me properly?
She knew the story else. I was like, oh, you.
Wait, what?
You're looking to this. And then she's like.
Hello.
Oh, cause you guys did the command minus in class, you have to make a command minus, right?
Well, three, no, well, we did three.
This is working.
Minus login. So we said, I don't really know.
Oh, I have deja.
Can you hear me?
Then right now.
No.
Probably have like this in front of that.
I mean.
I'll take it in chat.
Yeah, type something in chat real quick.
Chat, check it out, check it out.
I don't think it's working because the mic icon's like flashing right now. I think it's supposed to be like.
Okay, they can hear
Okay.
me. Alright.
Fine.
I don't think any more people are gonna come, so I'm gonna shut the door and we'll get started, I guess.
Even if you're.
I don't know why a door needs a jar, but
When is the door not? When is it? Let me read it right over and then I'll. Okay.
alright, time to start recording. I guess. Alright, that should be it.
Cut them off.
Alright, hello everyone, this is VGDC Writing Workshop, Winter 2024 is the first It's the first workshop, the first writing workshop of the quarter. My name is Ryan Kim, and I will tell you all about narrative through gameplay, I guess. Well, oops. So in this workshop, we'll kind of touch upon stuff that happened last quarter, not too much because you kind of look those videos up. And then we'll address how narrative and gameplay can kind of work together to create an amazing experience. And then at the end, because inevitably the writing department won't be able to cover everything in just workshops, you can ask me stuff about writing that you want to answer it immediately, I guess. Yeah, so I guess well, so there's a couple of things that we covered in the fall quarter. But I believe the most important ones were environmental storytelling, the art of telling a story without typing stuff, like dialogue. Sometimes the place you are in tells the story by itself. We also learned about how to use specific text-based engines like Twine. We also learned in the beginning how to plan out your story because in novels, you can plan however the hell you want, but in video game development, there's a specific way that you should plan, unless you want everything to get crazy. And I will not explain the last point, but yeah, that's pretty much it for fall quarter. We also sent a VOD for resumes and workshops last quarter, so if you want to check that out, you can go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a VOD for the lithium ion incident?
No,
Oh.
no, we have an NDA contract for that.
Oh.
Anyway, so we're gonna start the main workshop, but because this is such a narrative kind of thing, I guess, there's gonna be heavy spoilers for games I'm gonna mention. So if you care about games like Kane and Lynch, Dead Men, Yakuza 4, Doki Doki Literature Club, Lethal Company, I don't know how we can get spoiled on that. And Undertale, then be very warned because I'll be touching on that. So I'll open up with this game. So I don't know if you guys heard of this game, but it's called Kane and Lynch Dead Men. This is made by Iowa Interactive, the same people who made Hitman, and all the games, I think. So this is a rather unique kind of game. You play as a guy named Kane, and as you go through heists and like a lot of dangerous things, as he is forced to team up with let's just say, a kind of weird guy named Lynch. Yeah, he has his moments in this game. Wasn't very critically acclaimed. Actually, a lot of people hate it. You can't even buy this game on Steam anymore. But there is a particular moment that I think is very cool. So I want you to kind of imagine this for a bit. So imagine you just bought this game, right? And because you wanted to play like a shooter game, and you played through the single player mission. There is a specific mission, I believe it is the third mission, where you are robbing a bank for something. And once you emerge from the vault and get to the back to the main lobby, you have found out that your little partner here, like Lynch here, has murdered all the citizens in the lobby, and you're like, well, I guess that's just how it is. So after you play through the single player, you for some reason decide, oh, you know what? I want to play this with a friend because this has split screen co-op, right? So you get a buddy to play through the entire campaign again. And this time you decide to play as Lynch and your buddy plays as Kane. So you're doing the same mission again, and you're trying to protect the lobby from cops. But like when Kane starts emerging from the vault, and you're like kind of looking outside trying to shoot cops, you realize that there's actually a bunch of cops behind you right now, and you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Where did these guys come from? So you start like shooting them. You start like shooting them down, and then Kate, your buddy finally comes up to the main lobby, and they're like, "Why are you shooting hostages?" And you're like, well, that's a little confusing. I didn't shoot any hostages. I just started killing cops. And you kind of pause for a bit, and then you realize that the cops in the lobby are not actually shooting you. They are kind of just running around doing nothing. And you look at your buddy screen. You think this is a cop. On your screen, it's a cop. But the same guy here is not. He's just a random civilian. And then you realize something else. The game has tricked you. They switched the models from civilians to police in order to trick you into shooting innocent people. Now you understand a little bit about what Lynch was going through when he was shooting all those people, and you're like, I don't. That's how it is, I guess. And then you're like, damn, that's actually kind of cool. And then you suffer through the rest of the game, but it's whatever. So, what the example I gave you was an example of like something that kind of happened. I don't know if there's like a specific term for it, but I've decided, for the sake of this workshop, to call it narrative through gameplay. And basically, it's kind of a broad thing. I think there's a lot of like gray areas that like you could argue belong to this or don't belong to this. But for the sake of clarity, I believe that narrative through gameplay is when a game uses its own mechanics or its own game elements within the context of the narrative to create and like subverts them or alters them in order to strengthen said narrative. It can do this in a myriad of ways. It can like change models, like in the example shown earlier. It can break away from its own convention, or it can just simply break from regular genre conventions, I suppose. It can be used for a variety of things. You could just use it to reinforce the narrative themes of the game, or you can use it for more specific aspects like characterizing somebody. Like in the previous example where you realize that Lynch just imagined all these people to be cops. So we'll just go through a few examples, and then like So the first example, oops, like I forgot to do something. Why do you want to do this? Because trying to think through and like deliver on that kind of thing, it's tough. Being creative is tough. Thinking is hard. So why do you want to do this? Well, it's really damn cool. And doing this can help make your game or that particular like moment in that game really memorable. Kane and Lynch kind of sucks. Like people, like even with like fans of Kane and Lynch 2, they don't really particularly like this game. There's a reason why you can't buy it on Steam anymore. But a lot of people, when they play this through co-op, they remember this part. Because they were like, holy shit, that's a really cool thing that the game just did. So thinking through these things can really help keep at least part of your game super memorable. And being memorable probably is a good thing. This would be memorable in a good way, not in a bad way. So the first example I want to touch on is Yakuza 4. Basically, Yakuza 4 is a beat 'em up game. You beat up people and you go through intricate conspiracy of sorts to get them. And eventually you have to beat down the bad guys and save the day. So in this game, there are 4 protagonists, and each of them have an ability tree that you can level up using resources you get when you level up. So you can see here on this screen, how it kind of works. Like this screenshot, how it kind of works. If you know a little bit of Yakuza, you will know that the main series protagonist is Kiryu Kazuma. He has done a lot of things at this point. He's gone through multiple conflicts between Yakuza clans, and he's basically the boogeyman of the Yakuza world. kind of imagine like a John Wick, but he sucks with guns, but he's good with his fists, right? So he appears in Yakuza 4. However, you don't get to play as him until like the later end of the game. You spend the other 3/4 of the game playing as other characters: Akiyama, Saejima, and Tanimura. All four have differing ability trees that you like level up and gain different abilities. And for the first three opponents, and for the first three protagonists, you have to build them up from scratch. You don't have a single ability to your name. You have to build it up from the very bottom and turn your protagonists into basically superhumans. So knowing this, you will get to Kiryu at the very last game, not the very last game. I like the last 4 of the game, and you'll go through a couple of cutscenes, and you'll finally get into a fight, and then you'll level up, and then you will be like, oh, all right, I leveled up. It's time for me to get to new abilities so I can fight stronger. And so then you open up Kiryu's ability tree, and you're a little confused because you can't really, because there's some abilities that you can't unlock because you've already unlocked them. Abilities that you had to gain for the other 3 protagonists are already innately unlocked for Kiryu. So you know how powerful Kiryu is just by looking at where you start off with his abilities compared to where you had to start off with the other protagonists. And it not only gets you super hyped to play as Kazuma, but it gives you an understanding of just how fucking powerful this guy is. And it doesn't help that eventually Kiryu ends up fighting all 3 of the other protagonists. So yeah, that's it for Yakuza 4. A classic example, I guess, of this is Doki Doki Literature Club. Basically, after you get roped into some very unfortunate circumstances, you have to restart the game again. And this second run through of the game is very odd, right? So eventually you get to like an argument where you have to choose between these 3 girls, Natsuki, Yuri, and Monica. And maybe at this point you're like, oh, I want to side with her or something like that. So you go to pick this option, right? And you're about to click it, but then your mouse moves again. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't move all the way to Monica. And you're like, what the fuck? I didn't move my mouse. What the shit is this? So you try moving it again, and it goes back. And you decide to test this out. You try moving your mouse everywhere. But no matter where you move it, it always centers back on Monica. And you're like, that's a little suspicious. Why is this happening? This is very, very much foreshadowing for what happens next in the game. And this is a particularly creepy moment that ends up sticking in the players' minds, especially if you still end up managing to pick other options. So I know the addition of Lethal Company is very odd because you're like, well, Lethal Company doesn't really have a story. It has lore, yes, but it doesn't have like a continuous story that it can like leech off of, right? I suppose this is one of the more gray areas, but I think this counts. I think it's clear enough to count here. So basically, if you don't know Lethal Company, it's a game where you play as an employee of this black company, and you have to go onto different moons in order to gain loot, in order to sell them, in order to meet your quota. And if you don't meet your quota, then you die. Every time you go into a moon, it gives you a little hazard level. And basically, the higher the hazard level, the more dangerous it is. Currently, this is S+, which I think is the highest hazard level of the game. And it turns this into, and it's basically telling you, hey, This moon is super dangerous. Be careful. And and all the moons are like this. All moons have like a hazard level of some type. The only planet that doesn't have a hazard level is the company's planet, which is rated hazard level safe. And you might think when you come here, you'll be like, I can't die here, right? Because I mean, you can jump off a ledge and die, but that's completely your fault. You wanted to die at that point, but you can't be killed against your own will. At least you think so. So you go in and then you load in your loot, and then you ring the bell. Shit, there was a bell right over there. I could use that. But anyway, you don't read the rules. You stack everything up, and then you're like, "Get my fucking loot, please. I need my money." Oh, get my fucking loot. And then you hear a rumbling from behind the building, and then this happens. You get snatched up by a fucking monster. And you're like, wait, hold on a second. The hazard level said safe. Why did I get fucking killed right there? And through this interaction, the game kind of shows you that within the world of Lethal Company, there's literally no place where you can be totally safe from monsters. You can get fucking killed right here. And like a place where you can get killed in a safe zone. Like, what the heck? So it kind of implicitly tells you that no matter how safe you think you are, you're never completely safe. Something will always get you. And I think that's pretty damn cool. And of course, we're gonna end with a classic example, Undertale. So basically, it's a standard RPG kind of thing. So there's three main routes you can go down. I'm not gonna explain those because it'll take a while to explain. But basically, you get to kill people in Undertale, just like in any other RPG. So you go around these maps and you're like killing all these monsters. You're killing all these monsters so that you can level up. Because leveling up means you're more powerful. And you think, like, maybe in the first playthrough, and you haven't heard, like, imagine if you haven't heard anything of this game, and this is your first playthrough. You're like, okay, so I'll just grind through these kind of like these ruins. And then I'll move on when the monsters don't get enough XP. Just like in any other RPG, right? But then once you kill enough monsters, you kind of get. Yes, I used the screen twice. The game doesn't give you any more monsters. It just tells you, you wanted to fight, but nobody came. There's no more monsters to fight here. So you try and and through this, I think the game does two things. One, it sets itself apart from other RPGs that do allow you to just go around and kill monsters. And two, it makes you kind of think about what you were doing in the first place. Because in RPGs, when you're fighting goblins and orcs and dragons and all that, you don't really think about what you're doing. You're just like, I'm sorry, goblin, but I really need the XP. I'm gonna slaughter your entire family. But sorry, I gotta level up. I gotta get my sword. But by refusing to give you any more monsters after a certain point, it makes you kind of sit back and think, Jesus, I did just kill a bunch of fucking monsters, didn't I? I just killed this entire area. And with this revelation, you can either continue to kill everything in your path, or for a lot of people, they'll be like, damn, now I really don't want to do this anymore. What the heck? And then you will start to go a different path in the game. And the great thing is,
Right.
actually, I haven't thought about this. Thought through, never mind. But anyway, this is a good example. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
what you want?
Okay, so.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I wanted to mention really quick, if you guys haven't checked it out, there's a fan game called Undertale Yellow.
that serves as a sort of prequel to the events of
You're not
Undertale.
gonna spoil it, are you?
No,
Okay.
but I am going to mention a key difference between its genocide route with Yellow and with base Undertale.
I'm leaving in minutes.
Okay,
Bye.
I'm sorry.
Someone took the
Okay.
spoiler alert very seriously.
So, just to be very clear, I'm not going to spoil anything, but. So,
Spoils everything.
so base Undertale, the entire point of the genocide route is simply because you just want to like kill, right? That's pretty basic. But for Undertale Yellow's genocide route, it's more fueled by the idea of, oh, yeah.
Sorry, we are adjusting the mic.
So for Undertale Yellow's perspective of genocide, it's more taken as an act of redemption by the main character. And that kind of puts into perspective of illustrating how you're like basically like killing a bunch of like innocent monsters. At this point, you know, yada yada, something about you being a monster instead, right? But it kind of puts into the perspective as to why like this sort of new narrative is built upon like what like our pre-existing notion of what Undertale's genocide route was originally about. It was just senseless violence for the sake of it. But in Yellow's case, it's more senseless violence for the idea of redeeming your people, basically. So I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna see if
All right, thank you, writing officer Noel. That was a very good explanation. Hey, that is Undertale. So I want to. So considering that this happens quite a fair bit, not too often, but quite a fair bit. What's your favorite example of this? What moment do you remember fondly where a game subverted expectations by altering its own game mechanics to strengthen the narrative that it was trying to give you? Yes.
Do you guys mind the Gear Solid 5 spoiler?
All right, Metal Gear Solid 5 spoilers coming up. All right. Oh.
Okay, so Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of my favorite video games for this moment. I'm not super deep into Metal Gear lore when I got into it, but so basically it's a stealth shooter and it treats itself as a stealth shooter, even though it has like weird story elements in it. But like you go into it thinking, wow, I'm shooting people. That's wonderful. That's great. But then like you build some camaraderie with like the Diamond Dogs, which is like the organization you work for. And they're like your allies. They're like the team that you build up. It's kind of wholesome. It's kind of cute. You get a dog. It's awesome. And then one of the last missions that you do before like the epilogue stuff happens is that your entire crew gets infected, and you are tasked with basically just putting them out their misery, right?
Right.
So you're not shooting the bad guys with the gun shooting you. You're shooting at your own friends who are suffering, who are dying, and who can't defend themselves. And it like really like hit me hard because like I don't know, it like super subverts your expectations, right? You're not doing your gung ho shooting bad guy stuff. You're making tough choices for yourself and your friend, and that's like my example.
And I think what makes that scene more impactful is that one of the main ways to recruit soldiers in Metal Gear Solid 5 is going out of your way to knock them out and then fulcruming them all the way into the base. You wanted these soldiers to live.
You chose these soldiers. You handpicked them to like be on your side.
Right. And then like you decided not to shoot and kill them. But through this, you end up having to treat these soldiers that you basically kidnapped the same way as you did their former comrades. And that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good at all. And any other examples that people want to share? Yeah.
I guess you could say The Last of Us 2.
Oh. What's the moment you're thinking of?
Basically, I mean, just spoilers for anyone who hasn't played two. Basically after Joel dies, that makes the player.
What? What? Oh. Hold on.
Well, I thought you just played goal.
Okay, so Joel's death is supposed to be like an impactful moment, and that's gonna make you as Ellie like want to like take revenge.
Right.
And as you travel throughout the story as Ellie, you start killing people. And it's all based on her emotions. But then you don't and then like once you play as Abby, you start to realize, oh, they're just nice people. And so you start kind of feel like everything that Ellie's doing is like she's the main villain. She's basically just killing people out of spite of her own emotions.
Yeah, I feel like it really puts you in the perspective of two different like people and how they view a situation and like their backstory behind their actions. Which like it creates a moral dilemma for the player because they're playing as like Ellie, but they're not sure if they want to be playing as Ellie.
Or people aren't sure if they want to be playing as
Abby, exactly.
She kills Joel at the
Yeah.
beginning, so then as you go along, you start to realize like, oh yeah, she had reason,
Yeah, exactly.
and
She
you
had
feel
her-
bad.
Yeah,
Because in overall, Joel wasn't a good person.
yeah, he did some fucked up shit.
As people in the apocalypse do.
And that's
And you? Oh.
because what Joel does, that impacts Ellie as a character.
Right.
So he basically what Ellie does throughout the game is basically what Joel would have done too. And like then the ending, it's kind of like very significant because he ends up realizing that
We don't have to fight.
mhm.
We shouldn't be fighting like this. Because we both fucked us, like we both messed up.
Because what she did was trying to take revenge. She lost everything,
Exactly.
and so.
You want to hear Last of Us Part 2 spoilers?
Because in the way she's leaving.
Last of Us
behind
Part 2.
Yeah.
We're talking
And
about it right now.
If they keep on going the way that they're
Oh,
going,
okay.
they're just gonna lose more and more things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think a particularly poignant thing that to consider is that if you want to finish the game, you will have to deal with it. If you don't want to deal with Ellie, if you're like, I don't want Ellie to like kill all these people, you know, that seems kind of rude. The only way you can really avoid that is by just not playing the game. And that's a little bit of a conundrum because you probably paid like $60 for this game. You wanna actually finish it. But at the same time, if you want to finish it, you'll have to see Ellie go down this like
So.
it's kind of like downward spiral, which gets harder and harder to dig out of.
Wait, Brian,
Yeah.
okay, so, so what you're saying is that with inaction, that is the greatest form of protest against all things living and dead, right?
I don't
So
know.
what you're saying is I shouldn't do my finals up.
Hey.
Because then that way I won't fail. Right? Is that the main thing?
No, when they just give you like a 0,
Yeah, you want to fail, you'll just get a 0.
It's also the in school.
maybe with that thought process, maybe the failure is not the inaction, but rather the fear of action itself.
Indeed.
Anyway, this has nothing to do with what we were talking about. Anyway, does anyone have any other examples that they want to share here? Alexander, what is up?
Hopefully this is connected, so I know in Zone of the Enders. Like you
Zone
can-
of the Enders?
Yeah. You
Nice.
like complete the game, but there's these side. I guess Western missions to like help people out or else they like. The
Yeah, right.
robots will like destroy them.
Yeah.
So you could like fly over there and pick them out, but if you hit any buildings, the debris will go up.
So you-
That's
so-
wild.
So what you're saying is, element that usually wouldn't be a problem in any other like kind of mecha game is now a considerable problem if you're trying to save these people from like the robots because of collateral damage.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I think that connects.
If the building gets hit, you get like hit in 3.
Oh God, damn. That goes hard. Anyway, yeah, but that's a good example, I think, Alexander. Do you have any? Does anyone else have any examples? Yeah, Noel again.
I originally wanted to bring up Half-Life for a while now as a good example for this because I've actually played through like about halfway through the game right now. And there are a lot of examples where the narrative is only told through the navigation of like your environment and just like understanding like how to like just look at the game mechanics themselves. So a famous example is when you pick up the crowbar. So near the beginning of the game, wait, I don't know if I should stand up front.
I guess you could do whatever.
Yeah, so in the beginning of the game, or near the beginning of the game, when the resonance cascade finally happens, like the whole big explosion happens and you're like navigating out of the lab. You find like a dead guard there standing next to a crowbar and if you're taking this into context of like never playing the game, like you're like playing this game for the first time in like 1999, you're like, oh, that's just probably a like prop. I'll probably find like a button to like open this door and like go through or something. Or I'll probably get like a gun first. But no, you walk up to the crowbar and you immediately pick it up and you're like, oh, so this is gonna be my tool to like break open doors and to like break open like boxes so I could get more stuff, like more weapons and stuff. So just little subtle touches like that. It's like kind of a way to illustrate that like your core game mechanics are just random like things that you just happen to get lucky and just like pick up like off the ground. Like if you were in a survival scenario, you'd probably just pick up like any other like rod or something to like kind of fend yourself off, like a makeshift like staff or whatever. That's just something that I wanted to mention, just subtle details like that. They don't have to be extravagant like Kane and Lynch, for example, where you know, a major plot point is like changed. It could just be introducing the player to like simple mechanics. Stuff like that is like a good way to get your narrative like picked up from there. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. Yeah. Any other examples? Got one, I guess.
All right, this have to be our last one because we're getting kind of close.
Gotcha, I'll make this quick. So, to the moon spoilers, if people there, I think it's a relatively popular indie like narrative game. So it's like a 2D point and click game, and the premise is like two scientists go to this dying man's house. He's like on life support, and they want to like complete his final wish. Like that's what like this guy's like. He went to this company, he bought this like thing for them to go into his head. So they put on these headsets and they go back through his memories and try to like implant something so he can get his final wish and kind of die on a high note. But while they're doing that, they discover that what he actually wants is slightly different than his like what the final wish that he said, like he told the scientists. And so the two scientists characters that you're playing as, they have a disagreement on like what to do basically. Honor like his first wish or like the actual wish that he probably would have had. And so there's a disagreement, and one of the scientists actually like hijacks and uses the headset and kind of plays with the memories inside the old man's mind. So like when you're playing, you're like playing in his mind, like the maps and everything. And so like one of the scientists actually like tries to stop you by like sending things at you to block your path while you're trying to like find your way out of his mind basically. like. You'll like throw like, I don't know, like barrels in front of your way to like block you and stuff. And so I thought that was really cool, kind of like within the story and it made sense. Yeah,
Like a little change of pace from like the usual gameplay, maybe?
yeah, because the whole gameplay is like, there's not much to it, it's like.
Right.
So like that was kind of a bit of like an action sim in a way where you have to like use W's to move.
I see. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good example. Alright, so so the thing, okay, so we're gonna continue here. So the thing about this kind of thing is it's not only broad, but it also really depends on what game you're making. Like there's not a very solid like set of guidelines you can like use in order to make sure that you're using narrative through gameplay effectively, because well, using it is going to heavily depend on what you're making, and it's not always going to have the same effect. So I can only really give you tips that that just kind of apply to any other like writing thing. First, if you want to do this, if you want to use narrative through gameplay, you have to keep up with the trajectory of the game. You have to know where this thing is headed, because otherwise, if you don't know your own game, well, you can't really use this. You can't really know which gameplay element to use or subvert in order to use this trope. And another thing you want to do is think about why you're even doing this. Like consider if doing narrative through gameplay is even a good idea, right? Like, is this actually going to improve the narrative of this game? Is it gonna like stick with people? Or are they gonna be really confused that they did some random weird thing that they have to do for the game? Another thing you have to consider is, can the team do it? This is probably easier to do in like a sizable team, but you need to consider that that people have to program, they have to design it, and people are probably gonna have to make assets for these. Your team needs to be able to do it, needs to be able to do what you want them to do before it can actually be implemented. This is especially important when you have like, if you're doing pitch projects, because you only have about like 7 to 8 weeks to make the damn game. So you have to consider if the team that you have for the project, can they actually do it in time, even with everything else going on with their life, or is it just too out of scope? And then once you consider those and you're like, okay, yeah, it's both a good idea and my team can do it, then you gotta communicate with them. Yeah, it's true for anything writing related. You have to clearly communicate what they should do, and they should be able to clearly communicate with you on like what things need to be changed, or like if something is a little faulty and might need some adjusting. I feel, and yeah, if you consider these tips, then I say you should be solid for this type of thing. So this is, I guess, activity time. The Q&A thing, I did not realize we are gonna go through so many examples. So it'll probably only be like 5 or 10 minutes for you to be able to have this Q&A thing. But if you have any questions that you really want answered right now, then I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Oh no, they fucking left! No! The other person left. No! I can't believe this.
They probably
This is
don't
the
have
running
any-
way.
True, this is.
But anyway, if you guys really need something answered right now,
They didn't want-
then I'll try to. That's a spoiler. Is there any question that's burning in your mind right now that you really need answered?
Out of all of the examples that you presented in like the beginning of the workshop, which one would you say is the weakest out of all of the ones that you did? Because I'm assuming that Kane and Lynch is like your strongest one, because it's like the most prevalent example of having the narrative be demonstrated through the gameplay. Which one would you say is your weakest then?
That's I don't. The thing is, a lot of these examples, are very subjective because sometimes you'll do them and some people will be like, whoa, that's so cool. And then other people will be like, God, that was kind of weird. But I think maybe the weakest one in the list of examples I gave is maybe Lethal Company, because I think you can argue that it's not narrative through gameplay at all. Because not only because you could argue, well, it's just design, it's just like good design. And I think that's the thing with narrative through gameplay is it's really foggy because a lot of the time you could argue, well, that's just good game design. You know, it gets the player hooked, and it probably doesn't. It's not necessarily like a narrative type of thing. So probably I would say Lethal Company is the weakest. Because you can argue, oh, the game's just showing you that you can't trust anything, but I still think I think all the examples are like strong and clear enough to get the point across, I suppose.
All right, interesting, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, I suppose that will be it. But god damn it. Anyways, thanks for coming to the first week for like the first workshop of the quarter. I know it was kind of stuff. Okay, I'll be hosting a workshop on resumes, portfolios, and cover letters because that is important as fuck. You need a job in this economy.
I love jobs. I wonder if there's gonna be a cool art workshop after this. It'd be so sick.
Guys,
Feel free to stay.
right after.
Feel free to stay. There's an art workshop happening in like T minus 13 minutes. T minus 13 minutes.
Activity that was